the delmar.edu/SBDC. We've added a new button that says request advising right up in the upper right hand corner. So that way, and I'll show that at the very end so you can kind of see what it looks like. And all of our services are at no cost. Sorry, I'm gonna have to take a sip, sorry. Okay. And I can explain my cough. I have allergies, so in case anybody's wondering. Anyway, we do still are very much working with folks. We are taking in new clients all the time through the website. If you don't have access to the website, or some of you may know folks that may not have access to internet, access to a computer. I know it seems unfathomable, but there are people out there that fit this description. We can help those folks as well. We'd like to do it on a pretty limited basis, obviously, because we have really scarce resources right now. But they can call our number right here and the 698-1021, and Annette can get them directed to an advisor that will help them by phone. So we do have that resource available as well. Okay, for today's assignment, I was asked to overview the two most popular programs that SBA offers. They have 4 different pots of money that they're working with right now, but these are the ones that most people are asking about and most people are looking for direction on. So I'm going to say I'm not an SBA representative. Can everybody attest that you heard me say that? Because yeah, I don't think even SBA likes to talk about SBA stuff right now because it's a moving target. But this is the most recent information I received. I did get this just yesterday, so it should be, for the most part, still factual. If I come across any changes, we can always get those to y'all as well. I kind of swiped some information from slides. If you want the whole SBA presentation, you can go to sba.gov/tx/San Antonio, and you can get the whole slide deck there. So what are the most popular programs that people are asking about? I'm going to talk about the EIDL loan program first. It's the EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. And then I'll touch on Paycheck Protection Program. I don't have any slides on the Express Bridge Loans and the SBA Debt Relief. Just before we get going, I guess I can just touch on those. The SBA Debt Relief essentially means that if you have any existing SBA loans out there, be it disaster loans from Harvey or other SBA loan products that you've just gotten into prior to, I believe the deadline is sometime, if you had it on the books prior to February of this year, those loans are automatically going to go into a deferral status where the lenders are going to defer your loan payments for, some are going for 6 months, some can go as long as a year. It really just depends on the lender's discretion. So if you have any existing SBA debt, I would check with your lender who holds that debt and find out if there's any relief they can provide you in the way of a deferment. I believe it's supposed to be an automatic thing, but I wouldn't make that assumption. If you have a loan, before you stop making that first payment, please check with your lender and make sure that it is in fact deferred, and then double check on the amount of time that it is going to be deferred for. SBA Express Bridge Loans, those apply for folks that already have an existing relationship with a lender who is a preferred lender with SBA. They have the ability to do some really quick turnaround express bridge loans up to $25,000. So if you happen to bank with one of those institutions, they have that tool in their toolbox as well. However, I can tell you that the express bridge loans are still a 7A loan, which means they require quite a bit of paperwork, quite a bit of time. Even though they say express, the lender has the ability to use their own forms and do a lot of things at their own discretion, but it's still an SBA loan. So there's still quite a bit involved in getting one of those actually to where it's dispersed and you have the money in your hand. Okay, so economic injury disaster loan. This is the loan that you're going to apply directly to the SBA on the sba.gov website. This one is not one that goes through lenders. It goes directly from the SBA. You can get up to $2 million. Any loan amount you get, the payments are deferred for 12 months, so you don't have to start paying it back for a year. Small businesses and private nonprofits are actually eligible for this, this funding. The for-profit rate is 3.75%. For nonprofits, it's 2.75%, so it's pretty cheap money, which is great. And they do have long payout terms as well, 30 years to pay it back. So it can be a pretty, I guess, an inexpensive way to get some funding to get your business through this crisis, and doesn't amount to a giant monthly expense long-term for you. You can use it for fixed debts, payroll, accounts payable, and other bills affected by the disaster. Okay, there's no cost to apply. And some of these tidbits are in here because they, there are scammers out there, and there's a little scammers section in here in just a minute, but there's other people out there that are trying to look like the SBA, and they're asking for fees. If you encounter any screen that says pay a fee here, or asking for your bank account information other than one little place, then run the other way. You're not on a legitimate SBA site, because there's no cost to apply for these loans. You're under no obligation to take the loan if it's offered. Some people go all the way through the process, and sometimes it's a lengthy process, and by the time it gets approved, they found other financing, or they found other ways to overcome the need for the money, so they no longer want to take on that additional debt. You can always turn it down. So if you think you're going to need the funding, it's always best to apply, because you're never obligated to take it until you actually sign on the dotted line, which can take quite a while. It's not intended to replace lost sales or profits or for expansion. And I think there's a lot of confusion around that. People are thinking, well, of course I need a loan because I don't have sales right now. But the loan funds are not intended to replace those sales. The funds are intended to pay your ongoing expenses, which are two different things. The funds are supposed to be in place to help you make those financial obligations that you have, for rent, for mortgage, for payroll, things of that nature. That's what these funds are intended to do. The amount is determined by SBA from the information you provide. So they don't ask you, a lot of people are confused because they put in an application and they say, well, never did I see a place where I plugged in the amount that I need. SBA is going to determine that amount for you based on the information you provide them. They're going to determine what you actually need to cover your ongoing expenses. And so they're going to base the loan amount you're approved for on that information. Existing SBA disaster or business loans do not make you ineligible. You are not ineligible to apply for this. You can still apply for these loans even if you already have an existing loan. You cannot consolidate the loans. They have to be kept separate, but you are eligible to apply. Okay, personal guarantee requirements. This is completely different from other SBA loan products, if any of you have had them. They do not require a personal guarantee on this if the loan is under $200,000, which is a big departure from where they usually are. If over, then a guarantee, you'll be required to guarantee for everybody who's 20% or more owner in the business. There's no collateral requirement unless it's over $25,000. So if you're requesting, if the loan you end up getting is less than $25,000, it does not require collateral. For loans over that amount, they will not decline the loan based on nothing but collateral. If collateral is the only reason it's not eligible to be funded, then they're going to request that you pledge what you've got, but they're not going to deny the loan just on that fact. It does not require primary residence in Texas. And usually there's a credit elsewhere availability requirement that you have to kind of prove that you can't get a loan anywhere else in order to participate in one of these loans. They have waived that for this loan program. So you don't have to prove that you can't get funding elsewhere. How to apply? These are the browsers. Internet Explorer or Microsoft Edge seem to be the ones that work most effectively with their program, their online application. This is the information. The website to apply is this COVID-19 relief loan.sba.gov/. There's also links to this directly from sba.gov. If you just start on sba.gov and click on coronavirus banner at the very top, you're going to see all these application places, direct links. And I would recommend it if you don't have this written down exactly. There's a fear that it might take you to a scammer site. So it's always best to start at sba.gov and just start drilling down from there, because they've got links to all these programs right from their main website. Here's an 800 number you might want to write down, 1-800-659-2955. That is the Disaster Customer Service Center. For those of you who may have already applied and not heard anything back, we heard from an SBA representative yesterday that if you did not get a confirmation email pretty shortly after you submitted your application, you'll want to follow up by calling them, because you should have. And if you didn't get that confirmation email, you might be just waiting around and nothing's happening on the other end. So if you've already applied and you didn't see any kind of confirmation from SBA, call the 800 number here, and they should be able to look and see if they've got something in the system working for you or not yet. You may have to reapply. Okay, so they did streamline the process for application. It's now, I think it's just 2 screens. So it's really, really streamlined. They're asking for pretty basic stuff. Your business information, they're asking for you to identify how you're eligible. Basically, you just have to be a small business and not able to check any of these other boxes. I guess you can check all these other boxes, but they want to know how you're qualified. So you do have to pick the one that applies to you. Most people have less than 500 employees, and that's the one that's applicable. But please do review those and make sure you're checking the right box. And then you have to attest to all these other things that would, you're not a criminal, you're not currently in default on other things with the SBA, stuff like that. So please review all those. This is the business information they're going to ask for. It's pretty minimal. It's just your name, your EIN or your social security number, your organization type, what kind of business are you, your gross revenues for the 12 months prior to the date of the disaster. And they use January 31st as that date. So really they're looking at information from February 1 to January 31, February 1 of 2019 to January 31 of 2020. Your cost of goods sold, your rental properties, they're just asking you for your basic ongoing expenses. So that's how they're going to help determine how much of a loan they're going to offer you. This is a really important addition for those who applied early on. They did not have this section as part of the application. If you've already applied and you did not see this section of the application, go back in and reapply and fill out this section. That's the direction we've been given from SBA. This is the place where you can request the up to $10,000 advance on the economic injury disaster loan. And you have to check the little box here where the red arrow is that says, I would like to be considered for an advance. Now we've been told that the advance is not something that you have to pay back. So essentially it becomes a grant. There are certain conditions that have to be met for that to happen. I believe, and that's the thing that changes daily, and it's also tied in with the PPP. If you get a PPP loan, these two kind of come together, and this $10,000 can be affected, and the grant status of it can be affected based on what you get on the other end. So I don't want to confuse anybody, but obviously, if you'd like to be considered for the $10,000 advance grant, you're going to want to check that box and fill in this is the one place you should see that they're going to ask for information related to your bank account. But this is the only place you should ever see that on an SBA application. Okay, you can get up to $10,000 in capital in advance. This is the overview. We already talked about that. The loan advance will provide economic relief to businesses that are currently experiencing temporary loss of revenue. Funds may be available within 3 days of a successful application. And that I want to stress successful application, because we have had people who completed the application on their part the initial information. They completed it 2 weeks ago, and they still they still haven't heard from anybody. So a successful application implies that SBA on their end has grabbed your file, reviewed it, and verified the information. That's when the 3 days clock starts ticking for this loan advance. You'll see on a future screen here that kind of, it's indicating that that could be up to 4 weeks before it gets to that point. So even though it's an advance, our experience has been that even when a loan is approved of this type, it still takes usually 2 to 3 up to 4 weeks for it to get funded, to actually disperse the funds after it's been approved. So that's why the advance is important, because this can happen right at the point it's actually an approved loan. Within that 3-day window. So it's better than waiting. So in other words, you may have to wait a month to get this, but it's better than the 2 months it'll take you to get the rest of the loan. It says the advance will be available even if your application was declined or is still pending and will be forgiven. So really, you don't have much to lose by applying for one of these loans. We've not experienced anybody actually getting the advance yet. Like I said, we're looking at probably a 4-week window before those start flowing. And then we also haven't been able to test with our clients whether someone who's been denied for a loan is actually getting this. So, but at this point, I would encourage you, if the shoe fits, if your business can use the funding, and it doesn't hurt for you to apply. It doesn't hurt anything for you to apply, even in the event that you, even in the event that you ultimately, don't find other sources and don't need the money, you can always refuse the loan. So there's really no way for you to go wrong by applying now and getting in the queue, because it can take quite a while. It says this will not impact the status or slow your existing application. This is where they were talking about, in order to qualify for the advance, you need to submit the new application, even if you previously submitted an application in the older version that first came out. So after applying, loan processing decision, they're going to verify your information. They may ask you for more information. That's highly likely. Forecast completed to determine the idle amount. If any of you as businesses need help figuring out your forecast for your income, that's what we're here for. The Small Business Development Center can help you put that information together. So if any of you are struggling with some of the information that's being requested after the fact, please do engage with the SBDC. An advisor can help you. A loan officer is going to contact you, and the decision normally takes up to 4 weeks. That's what we're seeing. Like I said, we haven't seen anybody actually get the funds yet. Loan closes and funds disperse. You sign and submit your loan documents. This is when they're talking about the initial disbursement of $25,000 is within 5 days. And then if your actual loan is for more than that, the rest of that money it takes a little longer to get the rest of the money. Like I said, typically 2, 3, 4 weeks to get the remainder of those funds. And a case manager is assigned to help you with the rest. Okay, please complete and submit everything required. A lot of the delays we see is because there's incomplete information. Once again, if you have questions when filling out the application, I highly encourage you to connect with the SBDC Center and connect with an advisor, because they can at least help you make sure that your application, when you submit it, is complete. They can't help you with any of the actual information. They can't tell you what to put, but they can help you to figure out your information and make sure that everything you're submitting is factually correct based on the information that they have in hand that they can help you with, and then also that it's complete. If more funds are needed, you can submit supporting documents and request an increase. I think that's pretty neat for SBA disaster programs in general. I believe you have up to 6 months to ask for more money. If your initial estimates were low, or this drags on a little longer than anticipated, and you find that within 6 months you need more money, you can go back to this well and ask them to approve an increase in your funding. So keep that in mind. If less funds are needed, you can always request a reduction. Like I said, you're not obligated to accept the number they come up with. It's completely in your control to either accept less funds or to request more funds down the road. If you are denied, you will be given up to 6 months to provide new information and a written reconsideration request. My understanding is that anybody who's being denied these loans is being referred to our services, to the SBDC. So we'd be happy to help you try to decipher, on what grounds you were denied, and see if we can't figure out a way to get them the information they need and get that reconsidered. Okay, apparently a lot of people were running into issues with the site crashing. I have not heard recent information that leads me to think they still have the same problems when they revamped everything. I think they fixed a lot of these things. So they have this new site. Make sure this is the site you're using to apply, and then you should have smooth sailing. It shouldn't be crashing on you or giving you any problems. This is where I was referring to earlier. There are some people trying to scam others in SBA's name. Be super careful that the information you're looking at is legitimately SBA. There's no immediate deadline for the EIDL application, so it's going to be open for a while. So keep it in mind, like I said, as other funding sources work or don't work for you, or you find you need more money, just remember this is out here, and it's a kind of lengthy process, but it's still available, and it can help you in the long term. It does not cost anything to apply. Get your paperwork together. No credit card is needed, etc. Like I said, if anybody's asking for a credit card, immediately disconnect, get out of there. You're not at an SBA site. And also beware of any emails or websites ending in sba.help, because those are not legit. Anything legitimately SBA is going to have this sba.gov at the end. Okay, the other big program people are asking about a lot, the Paycheck Protection Program. You might be hearing it referred to as the PPP. This is a program they put in place. They passed it. They opened the doors for it on April 3rd, which was just this past Friday. Even though it feels like it was 100 years ago. I don't know if everybody else feels that way, but it seems like a long time ago to me. This is a program that is really a really good deal for folks who have employees in particular that they're trying to pay. If you have payroll, it's still applicable even if you are a sole proprietor and want to continue to be able to pay yourself. You can apply for these funds as well. You cannot use if you apply for the economic injury disaster loan that I just got done describing, you cannot use those proceeds for the same purpose as one of these loans. You can't double dip. However, you can apply for both and get both. You just have to be super clear about what funds you're using to pay what bills. And you need to have all your documentation support that. In other words, you can't ask for an economic injury disaster loan and say you're going to use a portion of that for payroll and then get a Paycheck Protection Program loan that is solely supposed to be used, well, not solely, but primarily used for payroll, and use both those pots of money to pay payroll for the same time period. You may use their economic injury disaster loan for a time period later than the next 2 months, but you can't use money from both of those pots to pay for the exact same payroll. The program will be available retroactive from February 15th, so employers can rehire their recently laid off employees through June 30. The point of this program is to give you access to funds that helps you bring your people back. If you've had to lay them off, it helps you bring them back. If you haven't laid them off yet, it should help you keep them on the payroll. This is a forgivable loan, which, a lot of people are referring to it as a grant. It is money that if you meet certain criteria, it will be forgiven. The loan will be fully forgiven if the funds are used for payroll costs, interest on mortgages, rent, and utilities. At least 75% of the forgiven amount must have been used for payroll. So I don't know anywhere where you're going to beat that deal, where and this has a deferment too. You don't start paying on this loan for 6 months. So you could essentially have it forgiven in the time period between now and the time your first payments would begin if it wasn't forgiven. So it's a really great deal. Any eligible small businesses, including this one's also open to nonprofits. It is open to sole proprietors and self-employed individuals, independent contractors, those 1099 folks. This is available. However, the 1099 folks can't apply yet. Sole proprietors can't apply yet. The deadline for those applications to start would be April the 10th. So you have a couple more days to wait if you're an independent contractor or a sole prop or a self-employed person. You can't apply yet, but you will be able to in the near future, April 10th. You have to have less than 500 employees or no greater than the number of employees set by the SBA size standard for certain industries. All loans under this program are the same, and this is actually not correct. This is one of those things that's changed. The interest rate is at 1%. So in the event that the loan is not completely forgiven because you didn't use it for, mostly payroll, it will be a loan that you have to pay back. The interest rate is 1%. It's paid back over 2 years. And like I said, the first payment is deferred for 6 months. This is 100% guaranteed by SBA. No collateral, no personal guarantees, no fees are included in this loan. So you should never pay any fees related to this particular product. There's a PPP application. Like I said, this goes through your lender. If your lender is not participating or already maxed out, which some of them are for the moment, like Wells Fargo, I understand are maxed out. They've already expended everything that they've got the ability to do. It sounds like there will be possibly a wave 3 of allocations to this program, which would increase that and maybe bring some of those lenders back online. That hasn't happened yet, but indications are that that's a very good possibility. So we want to make sure that you don't just assume your lender is not ever going to do it. If your lender is maxed out or not participating, there is a way for you to find another lender on SBA's website. So go to that sba.gov and follow the links to the Paycheck Protection Program. And right at the top of that page, you're going to see Find a Lender. There's a link that says Find a Lender. So if your lender isn't participating for some reason, you can find another lender where you can apply at that site. Please make sure that you have your payroll documentation already prepared. They're going to take an average payroll and extend that out for 2.5 months is the maximum amount that you can borrow. So they're going to take an average payroll for a year, or for seasonal employees, seasonal payroll. They've got different criteria. All the details are on the site for SBA. You can dig down in there a little further on the site to figure out what payroll documentation you need to produce and also what that consists of. Here's a calculation. The maximum loan amount you can get is $10 million. No employees, nobody can get payroll for employees that make more than $100,000 a year. They're saying here annual payroll of $120,000 as an example. Average monthly payroll is $10,000. Multiply that by 2.5, and you have a $25,000 loan that they would potentially give you under this program. You can only get one PPP loan as a borrower. Now, I was on a call the other day where people asked the question, if you have multiple businesses, can you apply multiple times? And the answer they gave was yes. As long as you have a separate EIN for each business can apply for one of these loans. So you have to have a separate EIN in order to be able to do that. Independent contractors do not count as employees for the purposes of this program loan forgiveness. And the reason for that is because they, as independent contractors, have the ability to apply for this loan themselves to recover the funding that they would normally get paid. So 1099 employees can apply as a business themselves to participate in this. They just need to have their documentation ready that shows how much they historically have been paid in order to be able to do that 2.5 month calculation. Okay, so that's all I have on the SBA programs. There's another program that just arrived into approval yesterday, City of Corpus Christi Business Recovery Program. They're going to do that in a cooperation with Lift Fund. The program opens for applications on April 13th, which is next Monday. And if anybody wants to get a preview or kind of get an application in the queue, we're hearing that that's happening. So even though it doesn't open till Monday, if you put in an application at their site now, you're effectively in their queue for consideration on Monday. So there's going to be tons more information that comes about on this loan program over the next few days. Essentially, it's capped out at $25,000. It is a loan. It's a zero interest loan, but you do have to qualify. They have their regular lender qualifications that Lift Fund subscribes to. So you have to meet their credit guidelines and things of that nature to get one of these loans. But it is up to $25,000. You have up to 3 years to pay that back, 0% interest. And they are going to prioritize businesses hardest hit. In other words, those mandated to shut down have been affected, very, very heavily here. And so you have to have less than 10 employees to qualify to apply for this program as well. They're starting there. I don't know if there'll be future expansions of it, but that's the initial program that they're rolling out on Monday. And with that, this is how you find us. This is our front page of our website, delmar.edu/SBDC. Right up here in the corner, I don't know if you can see it, right up here in the corner, the request for advising red box right under our address and phone number is where you would click to get connected with an advisor. All of our services are always at no cost. Our tax dollars are paying for us to be here to help you guys as business owners, and we'll continue to do so the best we can with the situation we're in. But do not assume we're not there to help, because we do have advisors, and our regular staff are working. Everybody's working from home. Our unique industry kind of allows us to do that, almost like we were sitting at our desk at work. So by all means, do not hesitate to contact us if we can help you, because that's why we're there.
Okay, thank you, Anne. That was a great presentation, a lot of great information for everyone. And I do have a few questions that some people sent in the chat. Okay. And also, if you guys have any other questions, go ahead and put them there while I'm talking about these, and we can get to those as well. So one of them is from Scott Mapes. He's out in Rockport, and he has a few things that he has questions about. So one was that he's having a hard time finding lenders who will issue an SBA 7A loan.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see. This is Rockport, Second Harvey, and is going to tough to survive.
Yeah, that's the other part of his question.
Oh, okay. I don't know if there's a resource for how everything's being distributed by county. I know the best way for you to get to participate is to apply for all these programs. You've got to get an application in. I don't believe I've seen any evidence that there's any rhyme or reason to how they're getting processed, other than by order of when they're going in the queue. I haven't seen any indications that they're loaning to bigger companies first, or smaller companies, or rural areas are being prioritized lower. It's purely based on how people are coming in the queue, to the best that I can see.
Okay. And so that other part that you were just looking at, he says, this is Rockport's Second Harvey. It seems the majority of grants and loans through SBA and TBIB have gone to larger businesses. Is there any way that we can find out how funds are being distributed by county?
Yeah, I imagine SBA may someday produce that information. During Harvey, we were getting almost daily updates along those lines. We knew where the monies were going by county. I haven't seen any indication that they've got any resources going towards producing that kind of documentation for this event. So.
Okay, and also he says that he has found that local vendors want you to move your bank account before they will submit your application. What do you think about that?
I'm not familiar with that. I wouldn't be surprised that there's not a request there, but that's pretty typical for any lender. If they're going to consider giving you a loan, most of them will ask you to move your business accounts to their institution. I don't think that's unique. I would be surprised if it's happening for these loans, because these are not, a lot of times 2.5 months of payroll is not a super large number for a lot of businesses. So if a local institution is asking you to move your business bank account to their bank as a condition of doing one of these loans, there's nothing prohibiting them from doing that, as far as I know. And really, if that's not something you're comfortable doing, then you can try another one. Like I said, you have that find a lender link on sba.gov website that'll lead you to folks who are doing these loans and not requiring those kinds of things.
Okay.
Yeah, every lender is kind of setting their own criteria with how and who they're doing these loans, how they're participating in this program. Some make it a requirement, if you weren't already an existing customer of the bank or the lending institution, you can't apply at all at their bank. So the SBA has given them the leeway to implement it and participate at whatever level they're comfortable with as a lending institution.
Okay. So Jillian Camacho has a question here, and this is regarding the tax provisions that are being available right now in that deferment for your payroll taxes. So he's saying he wants to confirm that the employer has the option to defer Social Security taxes for a period of 2 years, where half of that deferment is payable in 2021 and the other half is payable in 2022. And is there a form to fill out, or do we just submit payment to the IRS?
I heard somebody address this in a meeting. I don't have that right in front of me. I have heard that alluded to. There's a gentleman by the name of Steve. No, it wasn't Steve Trigger. I can get that name and get that out to you, and you can forward it to folks. There was a gentleman that is an expert in that arena who just reported out on that yesterday, and I'll get his contact information out to you, and then if you can distribute it to everybody. That's not a question I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. And then another question, just not necessarily in this forum, but just something that I've heard from other business owners that I know. And I think you kind of addressed that, but I just want to make sure and go over that again, is that the waiting, a lot of people are saying that they've applied for the grant and they haven't heard anything back, and what's going on. And, we haven't even gotten the confirmation email, and I'm sure the backlog is humongous. Right. And so I guess it looks like the waiting period is about 4 weeks, because I think the concern is, well, we can't afford to wait 4 weeks. But
Right. I understand that. And that's another reason why the city implemented this new program with Lift Fund, is to try to get some gap financing in place while people are waiting for these other funds to come through. Because it's going to take a while. Unfortunately, we're not aware of, there is, Facebook has, grants that they're doing. I would encourage all of you to go to the front page of our website. If you scroll down, we've got lots of links like that for other types of funding that might be floating around out there that you can take advantage of. So I would just keep searching and apply for everything that you come across, because like I said, you can't go wrong there. You can't apply for 2 PPP loans, but other than that, you can apply for, hit all the resources, and any of the SBA products. You're not on the hook for any of that until they've actually approved you and you've actually signed their documentation. So it doesn't hurt to put the applications out there. You don't want multiple applications for the same programs. That will just slow your stuff down, I would guess. But feel free to apply for all the different programs that are out there and kind of see, see which one shakes loose first. I wish we had a more quicker way for folks to get the resources. I didn't talk about it in the presentation, but there are ways for you to free up other avenues you can use outside of bringing cash in. You can talk to your suppliers, see if they'll work with you on extending you lines of credit as kind of a stopgap to not have to keep that cash hemorrhage from being any worse. Talk to your landlords, see if they'll work with you on your rent, stuff like that. Get everything in writing if you're working on negotiations like that with folks, because sometimes those stories change after the fact. So we want to make sure everybody's having those communications in writing. But those are other ways for you to kind of minimize the cash outflow versus trying to find ways to bring money in. And encourage your folks there, with the unemployment stuff that's been approved. Really, some employees, I know nobody wants to lose employees, and obviously most of these programs are designed for you to try to get your employees back. But with the extra $600 a week right now, it's not as horrible a situation as it could be for folks if they have to do the unemployment route. And actually, these PPP loans, you kind of have to because I think it's 16 weeks of an extra $600, that's $9,600. So if your PPP loan isn't going to even be that much, they may almost be better served by going the unemployment route versus you trying to get a PPP loan to keep them on. Obviously, we want to keep people employed, and we want people to be able to hang on to their employees because, we were in a super tight labor market before this happened. And, anytime you let an employee go like that, you run the risk you might not get them back. So obviously that's going to be top priority, is to keep people employed with their current employer to make sure you can ramp up when this is all on its way out and keep on trucking.
Okay. And Scott, actually, you can see his question. Our 1099 employees should apply for their own PPP. Should they also apply for unemployment?
I would do both. I would let the folks at unemployment tell you, hey, if you get this, you got to reject your PPP, and vice versa. But yeah, I would tap every resource you can right now and just see what shakes loose. The lenders doing the PPP loans are going to ask specific questions related to stuff like that for 1099. I think that's why it's taken longer for sole props and 1099s to be able to apply, because they are going to have different application criteria, different questions they're going to be answering than the ones that, are not in that situation right now.
Okay. And I think one last question, unless anyone has anything else, just to clarify, all of these programs are available to 501c3s. Is that correct?
Not all of them, no.
Okay.
No, the PPP is available to 501c3, and I believe the economic injury disaster loan is also available for nonprofits. The business, yeah, for the grants, well, the forgivable loans. So I want to make sure we're using the same terminology. Yeah, the forgivable loans. As far as I know, you can get more information on SBA's website for the economic injury disaster loan. I know there's some ineligible businesses and nonprofits. It depends on what they do. There's a whole criteria of ones that are not eligible. Usually they cannot have any kind of religious connotations. I think they've made an exception for that with the PPP loans, but I don't think they have for the economic injury disaster loans.
Okay. How quickly is the PPP money distributed? Julian's asking.
Well, I can tell you we've just got notice today. I mean, it just opened Friday. Applications were flooding in Friday everywhere. I have in our Southwest Texas border region network, we have gotten confirmation that a couple folks have actually got their monies in hand, have actually been dispersed. So that's pretty darn quick. One of them was $350,000, but that represented, was a larger small employer, and that represented 1 month of their payroll was $350,000. So I would expect that more of those are going to come, flooding through the pipeline here. As each day goes by, we're going to start hearing more and more are actually getting funded.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions? No? Okay. So once we're done here, I'm going to go ahead and clean up the video a little bit, and I'll put a link to it on our Facebook page. And also, if any of you that are here, if any of you guys have any additional questions, please feel free to email me. My email address is kgalan, KGALAN, @corpuschristi.bbb.org, and I'll be happy to find answers for you and get back to you as soon as I can. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Good luck, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.